Signals in the deep, markets never sleep. Whales move silent, but we speak. On-chain truth, no disguise. This is Leviathan, open your eyes.
Take two. GM fam. Today is Friday, November 21st. It's the first day of the rest of our lives, and I am sure that for your sake, it's going to be your absolute best one yet. I know for my sake, it's going to be a banger because, first of all, I get to spend it with all of you. Second, there's some of you still here, which is amazing because this is very, very, very poor sentiment with the market right now, but you're still here partying. So that means you're hardcore, and that means this is going to be great. We got so much stuff to discuss. Last week, you might remember that I didn't really touch too much on the news because I was mostly focused on vibe building, not vibe coding. I also hadn't slept, so I was barely speaking English. Today, as I continue with my English education, I will, try and show off all the fancy words I learned over the past few weeks, but also basically want to go over a recap of all the news from the last 2 weeks that I thought would be worthwhile to focus on. Of course, I'm just going to focus on the news I'm interested in, so I'm going to keep it mostly around curve, yield basis, some Aave stuff, but super interactive here. If you want to discuss, first of all, you can chime in on the chat. We are streaming live on X and on YouTube, and we definitely invite you to leave comments there. Or if you'd like to just join here in the studio and keep me company, I am dropping right now the link that just got generated right as we went live here. So you can join us directly. Looks like that is now live in everywhere. All right, so anyone who wants can come join in. I have rumors buzzing that there might be a guest coming and joining us later. We'll find out. If not, I will probably have to jump somewhere around the top of the hour. So let's dive into it. First off, let's pay the bills. Want to give a big shout out to the winner of last week's Squid Pass, which was not actually the ordinary bidder for Aave, but in true interesting Leviathan news fashion, the winner actually gave the Squid Pass to Aave. So Aave ended up getting it, even though the ordinary bidder for Aave did not end up winning it. That's just how much we like Aave here. And the news being advertised by Aave this week was a pretty interesting one. They were featured in CoinDesk. Let's zoom in on this. And one of the cool things is a lot of the squids have been doing around Leviathan is writing these great TLDRs. Danik Jade has this one. So basically the interview here, Aave is building a decentralized contributor-powered infrastructure for AI, storage, and media, which blends Web 2 compatibility with Web 3 incentives. They have over 300,000 nodes. They offer distributed storage, compute, and streaming through Aave Storage, Aave AI, and Aave Stream, while enabling anybody to earn rewards by contributing hardware. So in other words, you got a laptop, you got a GPU cluster, you can contribute to this network that's powering streams like this. So we should actually figure out how we can get set up on Aave. The Aave ecosystem is looking to create a scalable, community-driven foundation for the next generation internet, faster, more resilient, and fully decentralized. So all music to our ears, all the kinds of reasons that brought us to the space. Check out the Aave network on CoinDesk by clicking on that QR code. It'll take you right to things. And Robo asks if I am Vitalik or if Vitalik is going to join. Yeah, I think we should get Vitalik in. Why not? Every time Ethereum goes down, we see a new version of Vitalik emerge. Why not the Llama Party Vitalik? I think there'll be a blast to have him here. So Vitalik, I know you're one of the hundreds of people listening to this live on X. Come pop in. The link is in the live stream. All right, let's see. So that is that, but just note that if you don't like Aave and you want to dethrone them, we are currently doing auctions. You can click here on this auctions tab on leviathannews.xyz. Now, I know that last week we deployed the auction contracts live on air, so they are sitting there on mainnet. The UI is almost ready, not yet, so this might be the last auction here on Frax. Every time you win an auction, you do get an NFT. So you might be the honorary winner of the last Squid Pass NFT if you bid on this week's auction delivered on Fraxtal. It's currently going for 42,000 squid or a measly $106, thanks to the distressed token prices throughout the ecosystem. So that's like free pretty much. So if you'd like the Squid Pass, you can head to the auction. You can bid using Squid or Wrapped Frax ETH. And this might be the final one on Fraxtal, for all we know. I mean, we'll still probably have some auctions in Fraxtal using Squid for the culture, and then have some on mainnet. I already made at least one error on mainnet when I set up a test auction, and I was just using the usual parameters and didn't realize that the first auction on mainnet, which is live now, you can actually go to the smart contracts that are deployed if you want to bid on it. But you'd have to bid 2,000 ETH to win it. So I know ETH is going to 0, but still 2,000 ETH might be a lot. Oh yeah, Vitalik is on his anti-DAT arc. So yeah. much to talk about. So several ways that you can view the news at Leviathan. Here's just the current snapshot of what's hot right now, and we'll probably get into this if we have time. There's some talk about the AI bubble cracking, which is just what we need, right? Like as if our bags weren't suffering enough. Now it might be the case that the only interesting part of the economy that's been going up has been Nvidia, and that might be on the verge of cracking. So get ready to build, folks. We're entering a builder's market. It seems like there's pretty much nothing good going on. No, as cool as all this is, the stories that I wanted to talk about mostly was there was a lot of news about Aave this past week. So if you missed it, there was a few really big things. First is that Aave v4's testnet is launching. So this is a developer preview of Aave Pro. So you can see the video playing on the screen here. It's pretty cool stuff. Once again, Danik Jade with the fantastic TLDR. Aave v4 is now live on a public testnet. The code is open for review, and there's an Aave Pro interface for advanced users. This upgrade introduces this hub and spoke architecture, which is going to better unify liquidity, improve rates, and make governance even lighter. It's also adding risk premia so that borrowing costs better match collateral quality. And security audits are still ongoing, but the team is gathering community feedback as they prepare for a full launch on mainnet. So this is pretty exciting stuff. Aave is best in class in DeFi. They have not hiccuped at all during this bear market. They've seen kind of sustained TVL growing, knocking out use cases. So super exciting to see it. It's going to be interesting to see what this ends up doing for Curve, of course, because one of the big differentiators that Curve launched its lending markets with was this concept of soft liquidations, which is a friendlier liquidation mechanism. And I know Aave v4 said that they're also going to be introducing softer or friendlier liquidation mechanisms. So we'll see what ends up happening. The other big news that came out from Aave this week was almost focused on a completely different. So I feel like Aave v4 was focused very heavily on the borrowers. Correct me if I'm wrong, because I'm usually quite wrong. This Aave app that they have released on the App Store seems to be much more focused on suppliers. So this app offers higher rates, real-time compounding, and flexible withdrawals, all basically if you got some spare change, almost kind of like a bank account app. And Spencer420 nabbed this TLDR. Speaking of which, we are actually working in this next UI push. There's going to be a feature where you can tag as a TLDR your comments on the website. So keep on the lookout for that. But the Aave app is offering up to 9% APY by verifying your identity, setting up automatic deposits, or inviting friends. This is much, much higher than the average savings rate. And what's kind of cool about this is Aave had never really been strongly competing on having the best savings rate within crypto. But they sort of, because they were so default safe, that was one of the reasons that in fact people didn't see much of a risk premium. It drove down things. But you can get significant boosts using this app. So I don't know the exact flow of how they are doing that. It does mention that the boosts are US only, which finally a rare win for us burgers. There's also $1 million in balance protection, which is better than 250K. So I'm not going to lie, Aave has such a sterling track record. I kind of might try it. Why not? I got stables sitting around, and I never quite feel like they have a perfect home. I do a lot of stablecoin farming on Curve, but that does require a lot of research. Aave's always been very safe, very set or forget. And in an app, why on earth not? So very interesting stuff. This goes back a little bit further, but there's some news that the Aave Finance Committee increased the buybacks rate at to the maximum that they've been authorized to do. So they've currently repurchased 117,000 Aave tokens at $178. And if we dive in, there's a lot of comments on this on the Leviathan News website. Spencer 420 mentions that they're using this excess revenue to purchase Aave tokens each week. It's being managed by the Aave Finance Committee. The tokens are being added to the ecosystem's reserve, which can later be used for development, rewards, or future burns. So they are buying these each week. Yeah. Kind of nice to see on the dips. Now I know there's a lot of debate as to whether buybacks actually do anything. My colleague Fiddy is very much of the opinion that buybacks don't do anything. So we'll see what's going on. Even further back, just 7 days ago, Aave got My Car authorization in Europe, which allows them to offer their push service, including zero-fee euro to stablecoin ramps, which give users unrestricted access, but regulated access to Go and other assets. So it's pretty wild, the numbers being put out by Aave. And just all the amazing things that they've been doing right. So the fact that they are going to have an on and off ramp for Go, their stablecoin, pretty amazing. And Spencer 420 dropping this here. They're rolling out a regulated zero-fee on and off ramping for Go and other stablecoins. So we'll see if anything else makes it in that. They'll be integrated through Aave Labs products in the European Economic Area through this new service, Push. It's made possible by Push Virtual Assets Ireland Limited, a subsidiary of Aave Labs, which has secured crypto asset service provider authorization under the EU markets in crypto assets regulation. My car. Now, I'm a burger, as I mentioned. I just want my 9% yield on Aave. I don't know what all these crazy things mean. I know that Europe is massively laden with paperwork and bureaucracy. So kudos to Aave for figuring all that out so that I do not have to. All right, so I'm not seeing any questions about it in the comments, so it seems like we could pretty safely move on to the next topic. But just wanted to shout out really good stuff from Aave. They've been winning, no doubt, the stablecoin market, and now they're pushing onto mobile. So I know that you don't need advice from left of bell curve people like myself, but I think an app is cool. How about Aave Phone? I'm just gonna dangle that out there. I don't really like having cell service from my awful cell service provider. Solana hinted a phone at one point, at which point there was comments that maybe Curve would release a phone, but then we realized that's basically a TI-83 with one of those long cables to message the calculator at the next desk. I don't really think that any other server, I feel like Aave could actually knock it out since they already have an app. So just gonna float that out there. Let's see an Aave phone coming. What else has been going on within the world of crypto? I'll go ahead and move on to Curve, which is most near and dear to my heart. It's been fairly quiet week for Curve. Not in terms of revenue, once again, because the market going down, really good stuff for Curve revenue. But a lot of the team has been in ETH DevCon or DevConnect in Buenos Aires. So there's been some cool stuff. If you missed it, my FOMO has been super intense here. But one of the cool things that was happening is Curve had never been big in the swag game, but they're making a big entry into it. So here's our good friend DeFi advisor who has been on the scene at Buenos Aires representing Frankencoin. But he did stop by the Curve events and saw the swag that Curve was giving out, which is this gorgeous Curve kimono. So I think that's I don't think I've ever seen kimono as swag before. Now, admittedly, it might have been more on brand if this had been a Japan event. I feel like if you're doing an ETH Latam event, you could have maybe done a custom mate, that device that they use for drinking the mate tea, or maybe Curve steaks with the Curve logo stamped on it. But we still get to see no one's going to turn down a kimono. So good on you all. Good on you there. So this was something that I wanted to talk about from a couple of weeks ago when I was too busy coding. And no, that's not going to delay the Llama Buck. Like Curve has launched its token. One of the interesting chains that we see Curve launching on new chains all the time, but this was like a story that I thought was definitely worth highlighting because it was not anything that anyone expected. Curve is launching on Unichain. And this was not actually done at the behest of Unichain. Pretty often, like you'll see an L2 come along and basically say like, "Hey, could you launch Curve here? We'd really like it." Curve, like talks, and usually there's Curve Lite, Curve Core, so you could just anyone can permissionlessly do that. Um, and that's how this was launched. It was not actually Curve launch, Uniswap coming to Curve and being like, "Hey, could you deploy on Uniswap?" We'll talk about exactly why it is, but first comment here from Rosengarten ETH. Alt Dex going to end up taking more swap than Uni on Unichain. Proven once and for all, it was just the newest way that Uni Labs found to extract value from Uniswap, which was quite funny. Uniswap's been in the news a lot because they're actually like going to perhaps push the fee switch live, and there's this big proposal from Hayden Adams to do it. But is part of their proposal to push the fee swap, the fee switch live. They're actually disabling the UI tax, I believe, and redirecting those profits back to Uniswap. So it's just always funny what's going on within Uniswap. But the reason that Curve is launching on Unichain is because there was actually like a Morpho Labs market that had been launched on Unichain, and it turned out that there needed to be a pool that you could route through to profitably do liquidations, and there's not a lot of Uniswap liquidity for wrapped staked ETH and ETH. So in order to get the route with a good amount of liquidity and low slippage trading to actually be able to process this, um, you know, Uniswap, Unichain just saw somebody, I don't know who because I didn't do the on-chain analysis, deploy the Curve Lite, which can be deployed in any L2 chain. And look at that. Deploy a pool, process, and run some liquidations. So pretty cool stuff. Pretty cool stuff. I don't think that it's going to be terribly big, but if you look at the Curve homepage, it's kind of nice to see that when you look at this list of chains here, you can just pop onto Unichain and see what's going on. And we got 2.5 million in TVL for this Lido wrapped stETH secondary market. So I thought that was pretty cool stuff. By the way, we're not talking a ton about Uniswap on this. We actually talked more about Uniswap last week, but the free switch is redirecting money from the LP provider with no compensation. So we're going to see how that goes. Yeah, it's going to be an experiment. I know that like a lot of people are bullish and bearish in the Uni token and trading all that. I'm not a big trader, so I don't have massive comment on that. I did though want to comment on yields because that is something that I do a fair amount, is yield farming. And maybe if we got time, which I think we will, I'm kind of hitting all these pretty quickly and knocking them out of the park. But there is like, I'll go ahead and talk about like where I see as good yields in this latest week 47, 2025. Where are you going to put it? Your dollar coins, your stable coins, etc. So like, as I mentioned, it was still a good week for Curve. Like things went down across the board as might be expected. If you look at the Curve homepage, you can always see the stats, and Curve saw daily volume of 705 million on 1.93 billion in deposits. Like, always, like whenever markets have massive movements, it's pretty good for Curve. And it only came at the expense of 6.9% of its TVL. So it's down to 2 billion, where it's been pretty steady, whatever the bull market, bear market has been doing. Resupply had its increased Curve USD credit line proposal that got passed. Resupply has been doing really cool stuff. So it's nice to see that they're going to be able to basically use that for the SRE USD lending market, because Resupply, more than anyone else, really figured out how to like build a top of Llama Lend. And then we'll talk about the yield basis when we get to that. I just want to go through the top yields because we saw that within the Aave app, you can get 9% yield on Aave, which is good because you can do it on your phone. You can do it, while you're using the lavatory. However, thanks partly to like the crazy market action, S-Curve USD is giving 10.4%. like that's really good, because as opposed to like all these other markets like USDT, Curve USD, or Frax USD, you're giving like 5.9 to 6%. Just holding S Curve USD at the moment because it's like super risk off at the moment. 10% just doing that. Now, if you want to go a little further, there was a recent deployment on X, XDC chain, that is specifically. So there's a few different chains that have X. There's X Layer, there's XDC, there's X, formerly Twitter. But this is just the XDC chain recently launched, and they've got an S Curve USD USDC pool. It's pretty small, I believe. Just looking that up right now. It's 5.4 million. So it could actually handle some size, but they're giving X rewards worth about 20% on top of the fact that your S Curve USD is going to be earning 10%. USDC will not, but yeah, pretty good deal, I got to say. Pretty good deal. So it might be worth, if you're like chasing yields, heading over to XDC chain and grabbing the total of 43.9% yield you get when you combine all these yields together. It's down a bit, like it said, it's 20% now. So I think this is published as 43. A lot of people jumped there. If you want to stay on mainnet, there is some like pretty good yields you see here and there. EBUSD, though, I don't know a lot about. I don't know a lot about USDFI, so I might not touch that necessarily. But yeah, you could still get 20% yields. One thing that looks tempting to me is this 20% on Arbitrum for ALUSD USDC, because I trust Alchemix, I trust USDC, and I happen to have some money on Arbitrum. SCUSD, FRAX USD on Sonic is also another interesting one. Meanwhile, the top Bitcoin and Ethereum yields you can get. No, I'm pretty conservative when it comes to Bitcoin yield because I've gotten rugged a bit too much on wrap Bitcoin. So I'm more likely to chase this 1.7% TBTC CBBTC. I'd be doing yield basis, except I can't get in. They open it for like 5 minutes at a time, and it's never the 5 minutes that I'm paying attention to that particular X account, so I don't tend to get in. So I'm just like parked in TBTC earning 1%, while yield basis is earning something like 27 to 30%, which is pretty wild. But the Robo Odin's pretty happy the XDC chain, speaking of which, didn't go for XUSD as the native stable. So I'm not super familiar with XDC chain, but it sounds like if Robo Odin supports it, it's probably not a fly-by-night chain. Anyway, I'm bringing this up to say that there's some pretty good yields for Bitcoin if you're willing to go elsewhere. So on Ethereum, no Bitcoin yields that stick out, but LBTC, WBTC on that is Etherlink, I think. Yeah, that's Etherlink. So if you're willing to go to Etherlink with your Bitcoin, you can get 13.4%, which is pretty good. And then Ethereum, but no one likes Ethereum. That's kind of out of fashion, going to zero. Some other good yields, cross curves. Curve USD is giving you 36% on Sonic, or 15%. So if you're holding the Curve token, Curve yields came down quite a bit as inflation came down, but there's still some places to go. So there's been a lot of good stuff. We've seen a massive increase in people supplying to Llama Land in the past week. I was guessing that this was because of the resupply effect. It's also S-Dollar. Those are the two big markets that are getting a lot of people depositing Curve USD. So interesting stuff there. More DEX fees. The Curve DAO is not a ton of stuff changing around there. As always, good stuff in this weekly yields email, so make sure to check that out. But when it comes to yields, it's right in the name, folks. Yield basis is always doing fun stuff because they're built off of the blanking on the name here, the FX swap pools, and really showing off this kind of new generation of curve pools. I keep promising them I'm going to do a tutorial on one of these live streams. Maybe a week or two, I will finally get everything ready for it on what these FX swap pools are and how best to use them. But I think yield basis is the best way to do it. It's you deposit Bitcoin here, Oh, there is a little bit of space here. So if you got small amounts of Bitcoin, you might be able to get in here. But 30% token APR on, give or take, on TBTC, WBTC, and CBBTC. So when you just look at the Curve homepage, it's really like, let me switch over to this. It's really almost like pretty wild. So the top TVL pools, 3 pools, Steth, Spark, PYUSD Reserve, and then these 3 pools come next, around 100 million apiece. What do you notice? The base VAPY for these is 2 to 3 digits. So everything else is having to basically toss in incentives to get people to LP. And they're just doing this from the native trading fees. So this is how these FX swap pools really work, is that they are really good at concentrating liquidity through rebalancing or refueling, which better concentrates liquidity, which allows for more smooth trading. And especially this past week, while Bitcoin has been crazy, like we saw a lot of massive liquidations happening. And no surprise, they're going through the yield basis pools because that's the best way to transact large amounts of the 3 most major Bitcoin wrappers to Curve USD and then to other stable coins in size without slippage. So pretty remarkable what you see here. Of course, it sucks that Bitcoin price is going down, but so it goes. So how how are you going to possibly how are you going to possibly get into yield basis? Big question, right? Well, the good news is that there is a proposal that I believe it's passed. I'll go check on that. But this, no, I don't even think, no, it couldn't have been passed yet if it just went up 4 days ago. Maybe it's on the way to passing. Michael Egorov, who is founder and CEO of both Curve and Yield Basis, and he also moonlights as quants for people, warning them about their positions that might get liquidated on X. So he's got 3 jobs he's doing here. He has requested to increase the yield basis credit line to 1 billion with a B Curve USD. So this is kind of exciting for a number of reasons. There's a lot of comments here, as you might imagine, within the proposal. Here, Danik Jade gets the TLDR. It's a $1 billion Curve USD credit line, but don't panic if you're worried about what this might do to the peg. It's going to be deployed small chunks. Yield basis is going to be using it to finish migrating pools, boosting liquidity, scaling leverage markets. And so far, the Curve USD peg has actually been improved. Part of this is because through the yield basis deal, a lot of token emissions are going to be flowing to, and a lot of fees are going to be flowing back to the Curve DAO, which can be used to reinforce the peg by supplementing a lot of the peg keeper pools. So the expansion is very thoughtful. It's aiming to amplify all these benefits, manage risks. If you actually look through the proposal itself, I'll go ahead and read through it because you can see, the question about the Curve USD peg stability. For most of Curve USD's existence, the peg has been actually far more volatile than it has been recently. So since yield basis launched, it's actually been extremely stable. It's been printing massive volumes for Curve USD. The leverage and deleverage in Curve USD mint markets are already being used when routing. So this is allowing for BTC wrappers to leverage and deleverage positions in size, which allows for leverage trading using Curve USD. And then the YB distribution for Curve USD pools is already up. So by running this through Vodium and Vote Market, we're seeing the Curve DAO is able to effectively incentivize these pools. Pools get bigger, peg gets more stable. So it looks like, Roman Agariv is raising the concern that yield basis credit line should wait until there's a few key issues resolved. Most notably, concerns about the Curve USD peg and mint market rates, but with Llama Risk, there's going to be a report out published shortly developing smoother monetary policies which might address this. So this is not like a YOLO, let's yeet this to $1 billion. This is a very thoughtful proposal, and it looks like it will probably pass, and it'll probably get phased in chunks. What's cool about this is we might actually see that Curve USD could hit that $1 billion mark. And if Curve USD does hit $1 billion, it's probably going to be the most decentralized stablecoin at that $1 billion mark. So if you look, there's 13 stablecoins currently above $1 billion. Tether, of course, has most of that, 184 billion. USDC is next. Athena is arguably decentralized, arguably centralized. It's kind of your mileage may vary. Same with Sky's USDS. I'm a big fan of both projects, so I'm not using like whether it's centralized or decentralized as a slur. I'm just saying that like in reality, like there's not very many billion-dollar stable coins that are being done through like a mechanism like Curve USD. DAI is definitely decentralized. PayPal USD, you go down the list. World Liberty Financial, BlackRock's USD, Falcon USD, all amazing stablecoin projects. But Curve USD could slot in very nicely above $1 billion here. And if we actually had a decentralized stablecoin with $1 billion in liquidity, it would do a lot for the DeFi space, in my opinion. So like a lot of the more like truly decentralized stablecoins I'm looking at, like Go is doing fantastic. They're about to pass the meme-worthy 420 million mark. But that's kind of like where you see a lot of the decentralized ones. Curve is at 230 million, Cap USD at 233 million, Frax 184, Dala 174. So it's nice that we're able to get these to 100 million in size, but until it gets to a billion, 10 billion, 100 billion, it's not as interesting as I'd like. So good things coming. Like I support it. I support it for a number of reasons. Like I'm stupid, but like that $1 billion mark is just like really important to me. It seems like if you're not $1 billion, you're round down to zero. And when Curve USD launched, Mitch had basically thought that like just the mint markets alone could get there on borrowing demand, and it didn't quite get there. So that kind of felt like disappointing. So this kind of feels like it's coming full circle. We're going to get to $1 billion, and it seems like we're going to do it in a managed and safe way. So that's exciting for me to see. Your mileage may vary, but I think that we're going to see like Curve USD pass $1 billion and do a lot more. Quick auction update. So if you've been paying attention to the Leviathan News auctions, this might be the last one on Fractal. It has expired. 40,000 squid was the final price. The winning bidder, OX75E7, and all hexadecimals look alike to me. So absent my database query, I can't see exactly who that is. Congratulations, though, to the winner. You might be the last squid pass for some time on Fractal. Maybe not. We'll see. Hopefully, we can get released next week, although that would be Thanksgiving week, so maybe that's a bad time to do a squid pass auction. I don't even think I'll be able to do one of these llama parties next week. We'll see. I think it's going to be a tough stretch, though. So good stuff. All right. What else do we want to talk about? Let's go ahead and talk about this one. So I don't talk about trading stuff all that often because I'm not a good trader. I don't trade very often. But that being said, like I know that like the trading sentiment is really, really poor right now. Bitcoin's plummeting. It seems like maybe that crash back in October might have taken out some players we don't know about. We're seeing a lot of maybe leverage loops unwinding or something, and just like more and more like down only price action. So it's a pretty bleak time in crypto right now. Now, the only place that people have been like super excited about markets recently had been in this AI, and more specifically like Nvidia had been kind of propping up the entire market. And now it looks like, according to this like really lengthy article posted to X, it might not be so good for even Nvidia. So they've got this $610 billion quote unquote AI bubble, but they've got massive unpaid bills, massive unsold chip inventory, weak cash conversion, and circular AI loops. It's exposing what critics say is a revenue mirage propping up the entire sector. And it's not surprising for me to hear this. I don't really follow traditional finance all that often, but it does not surprise me to see that like there's kind of very obvious shell games being played with a lot of the AI bubble right now. So there, like every now and then you see like these like deals where like Nvidia is going to invest 100 million in Grok, and Grok will in turn buy $100 million worth of Nvidia chips. Just kind of like these like games to like do some like back and forth transactions to build up like build up some accounting metrics, but doesn't actually do anything. And I've seen this like all the time when I've been like looking at like how like VC economics work. You can't really quite believe it, right? So like it looks like there might be like some AI bubble collapsing. And for me, like I'm not invested in Nvidia or any of that stuff, so it doesn't matter to me. What does kind of matter to me though is just the MD calls it circular finance, which is funny. What matters to me is just the like product output for me as a builder. So I think we all maybe like are talking about like, was that the Pico top? Are we done with this cycle? Did we get like a like very small like 2-day pump on altcoins and that's it? Now we're back to a bear market for 4 years. I don't know. It might be the case. Whether it's the case or not, like I know that like one of the reasons I don't care that much about the markets going up or going down is that I just care about building, right? Like, and in a lot of ways, there's never been a better time to be a builder. Not because like crypto offers all these opportunities, which it does, but just because the AI tooling, separate from the AI bubble, is really, really good. And it's kind of in the past month or two that we've passed this like coding singularity. But if you are like dialed in and using AI effectively, you can do phenomenal, phenomenal stuff. So I would encourage all of you, if you are not a builder, now's a good time to try it because, first of all, we might be in a 4-year bear market, in which case you're not going to want to pay attention to the price. Trust me. And what better way to not pay attention to the price than to fight with AI over fixing small bugs in your code and shipping stuff? So, like we see this very often in history where like, the internet bubble 1.0 back in 2000, like the internet was a thing, even though the financial hysteria around it at the time and things like pets.com was not a thing. It might be the case that AI, oh, it's certainly going to be the case that AI is a thing, even if like the current AI bubble collapses completely. So, in my opinion, if like the AI bubble collapsed and let's say OpenAI disappeared and a lot of these companies disappeared, it would probably not meaningfully stop AI progress. But you might have to watch out because the user experience might suffer. And this is like one of the lessons I hope that builders take away from all this and might synthesize everything we've talked about so far, which is like one of the problems that I think has like plagued DeFi and has just plagued like everything. Like if you notice, everything in the entire planet kind of sucks. And what I mean by that is like, imagine you're like Gen Z and you're like excited to be an adult, and then you look at the real world and you're like, this real world is not very good. So like, let's break it down. Like, where does anyone actually build something for the delight of a end user experience? It's not any of the kind of like traditional finance companies, like the most of the Fortune 500 companies. They don't care about the user experience because they got a fiduciary duty to juice returns. And probably the best way to juice returns is to position themselves higher towards the money printer per the Cantillon effect, essentially get as close to the money spigot as possible. Because there's really, in this like hyperinflationary economy that we live in, where you just print money like at absurd rates, the only way to actually like juice shareholder returns is to get a piece of the exponentially increasing money printing. So the big companies don't care about you, they care about their shareholders, and the only way to do that is to figure out the best ways to suck up to the government. So they care about the government as their end user. And then what about small startups? For a long time, like people thought that like, oh, well, maybe like small startups are going to be kind of good because they need to gain market share. So maybe they're going to focus on delivering an outstanding product to the end user. And I feel like sometimes this is the case. There used to be this mantra of build something that people really like. But then, if you actually notice what's happened with the kind of like startup sausage mill, is it's become such a like routinized industry that it's like very systemic at this point. It's almost like a meat grinder for startups. And the startups don't really care about the end user. They just care about like getting whatever fictitious user numbers they can post, going to VCs who are their real end users, posting a really good story to the VCs, and doing that to gain billions of dollars in investment. And as a result, like you'll see these VC funded startups that like sell a good story, get a few $1 million, they build something, and you're like, hey, this is kind of good. And then all of a sudden, like the VCs decide, oh, well, you're building in a sector we're not investing in anymore. So all of a sudden, like this product you liked is no longer building what you liked, but they're pivoting to building some sort of like AI robotics stablecoin platform. And you're like, oh, okay, well, that's not what I signed up for. But okay, like my money's still in here, or whatever. Like it, you can kind of smell it when you use like a VC backed startup where it's like, this is not going to last longer than a year before it gets shut down or pivots hard into whatever the next narrative is. So they're not building a great experience. So you can't go to traditional companies because they're building for the government. You can't go to startups because they're building for VCs. Where can you as the end user go to find someone that's building for you? And there was like a niche of DeFi that was doing this. And I think this is where DeFi summer is like pretty exciting because there's all these like good faith companies like trying to build cool stuff. But then DeFi writ large got kind of tainted by a lot of other like hangers on. So there's a lot of scammers that were like, hey, people are trusting people building in DeFi, so I'll just like outrightly rug pull people. And then there are a lot of projects that didn't take off, a lot of like side chains, and you could argue that the rug pullers taking the money is more democratized of finance than any of the like prior systems. Like the money or the end user was the government, the end user was like the shareholders, the end user is the VCs or whatever. At least with the rug pulls, the end user was none of those people. So at least democratize the flow of money towards like young people who are like good at scamming. But that also kind of polluted the industry in a lot of ways. And now I think we're at an unfortunate point where there's not a lot of opportunity for people who are like looking to like use DeFi. I think the industry is a little contaminated. I think that if I talk to random people, they're not going to be willing to trust putting their money in DeFi. Because even the good projects end up like Balancer, like getting hacked, and people lose money off of things that were like super audited. So it's kind of a tough time to, I think, launch a DeFi product. Like if you launch maybe not if you're like building something that's like revolutionary or interesting. Like I think Flex Meow that Johnny Online is building right now, which at the moment has like such low ceilings that it's accessible to like small fish like me. I think like that could have legs, but I'd argue that if you're trying to like build another perp dex, maybe it's like maybe you're too late, maybe the market's saturated, I don't know. But maybe there is opportunity within crypto to actually just build kind of like the fun products that poor people can enjoy. And just really focus on building things for the end user. And in doing so, you might actually like get people who use crypto not because they're like in it to try and like flip meme coins and make $1 million because they got bills to pay, but just because like there's some cool apps. Like Friendtech is one example I always go back to. Like it was just kind of a cool social app that had this financial layer on top of it. Maybe it's time for that. Like maybe there's opportunity to build these apps that aren't promising great yields or promising like crazy new financial stuff, but are just built with crypto as a backend, but happen to be doing like really cool stuff that is focused on the end user. Because I just don't see anyone building for the end user. And nowadays with AI, you can do it. Like even people who don't know how to code can build some amazing things. So briefly, like I wanted to talk about the different AI platforms out there available for coders. Last time I was launching a smart contract live, and smart contracts, like I just don't recommend that you build anything that, especially if it's got a financial component to it, using AI at the moment. Like leave that for the people who like have studied Viper intensively, who have studied how to build tests, who have wet your feet on something like that's not going to lose people a lot of money. It's a great time to vibe code that kind of stuff, because if you like if you lose someone's photographs or something, like that's not as like an irrecoverable loss, whereas if you like built an app with like billions of dollars and it got rug pulled, like you'd feel pretty bad. So I had this conversation with someone just yesterday, and it was really interesting because he was basically saying like, I actually just don't know like what to believe about all the various like AI services, because you go on X and you see like, hey, this this is like great, it's revolutionizing things, but most often those are like paid influencer threads or like whatever, trying to like push things. And he was just thirsting for like an honest review of what are the different AI services for coding specifically, and are they good? So I'm going to go ahead and offer like my take on my experiences with the different AI services and like what I think you all should get into. I at the moment I pay for one, two, three. I'm paying for 4 AI services. I'm gonna cut that down to 3, I think. But I'll just go through and talk about my experience with each of them. So I'll start with Claude. Claude Code is by far the most fun, best experience I have using an AI for coding. So it's a command line tool, and their thesis is that the command line is where all the AIs are going to inevitably converge. So they're just making a killer Claude Code command line tool that is fantastic. It's my favorite. I consider it the big guns. So I will probably end up unsubscribing though from Claude because as much as I enjoy it, and it's so smart compared to the other ones at doing code, and it's so powerful, but the limits just drive me crazy. So the way that Claude works is that let me actually see if I can get this up. They have these different usage windows, and essentially got to pay more to be in the good usage windows. And the usage windows are both like within a short like 4-hour time span, and the usage windows are weekly. So you can kind of see it on this. I've been yakking with you, so like I haven't started my current session. If I did, it would be like 4 hours, and those can fill up pretty quickly. And then they have like once per week, like it's gonna reset. I'm already 75% of my way through it, and it's so obnoxious that I just can't. You can work with it, but I feel like I have to use Claude so sparingly. So I have to like use it on big tasks. It's really good when you put it in plan mode and you say like plan out this like new like semi big feature. But I know I'm gonna get like 5 to 10 of those through per week because like you'll set it loose, you'll give it unlimited permissions because it's really good at what it does. And it'll think and it'll come back in half an hour and have built you a completely featureful app. But there's only so many times you can do it per week, and that gets frustrating. So because I've like learned to work around it using the other AI tools, I end up like thinking that Claude might be on the chopping block. Now I'm on the $20 a week plan. You can get more for $100 a week. You can get more for $200 a week. I might go there. At the moment, my like random vibe coded apps aren't making money. So while they're just kind of like me just like having fun, I can't really justify like putting money into it. If I launched something and it started making any amount of money, like $5-10 a month, I would probably upgrade to like the $100, $200 tier. Second one I want to talk about is Cursor. Now Cursor is also very good. They're most known because they have this Cursor IDE. If you're not familiar with development, that's an interactive development environment. That means you can like download code into it. You can have your cold code base, and you have this nice like visual system. It's got like all these like powerful features, menus, and they're most known for their IDE because they basically like were among the first to have this capability of while you're writing code, it would allow you to autocomplete the code with AI. And that's actually like pretty transformational. Once you start coding with that, it's very tough to go back. So like as you're writing something, oftentimes like it's just so formulaic. Like if you're, filling out like a list with 10 items, once you start realizing you just tab and it's smart enough to figure out the 10 items in the list as opposed to having to type all 10, you don't want to go back. That being said, though, I actually have moved to using Cursor mostly through the shell interface because I don't like IDEs. And they also have like a Cursor command line interface, which is not quite as good as Claude Code. There's just some like little things that it doesn't do as well. Like Claude Code is kind of smart enough to know how to like give you a snippet of text that you can copy. Or like when you're backing up to change your statement in Claude Code, it's a little bit easier. It doesn't quite work as well within Cursor. Like occasionally, like it'll run things that will like run into like massive memory timeouts and chew up 70 gigabytes of RAM on your machine. So you have to like learn a little bit to deal with it. But the reason that I like Cursor on the command line is it's not as powerful or as smart as Claude Code. But for like tasks that you don't need quite the heavy guns on, I found it to be nearly unlimited. And as a result, like I can have like 10 different shell tabs open, have 10 different windows of of cursor running. You have to set the model to their auto model. They have different models, so you can, within cursor, you can pull in Claude code, or Claude's different Anthropic models. You can pull in OpenAI models. You can pull in Grok models, but it's got limited usage for each of those. So those can get used up very quickly. They just launched a new proprietary one, which is actually pretty good. And they give you a lot in this at the moment. I was able to use it pretty quickly, but it took a lot longer. So like it's felt more unlimited than Claude Code. So because of that, like I had pretty good experience with using cursors auto for like pretty simple stuff. And just because I like the command line best, like I'm probably always going to default to the terminal one, even if it doesn't have like a nice like terminal autocomplete. So cursor is probably going to like stick around, just because I know that like for simple tasks, I can have as much cursor AI as I want. So really good bang for your buck for that same $20 a month. OpenAI, they might have a command line tool. I'm not aware of it. I haven't tried it. I know I still have OpenAI. It's also on the chopping block though, because it's very, very good for kind of general knowledge and general tasks. So if you're wanting to research something, if you're wanting to write a report on something, if you're wanting to like just figure out something, but you don't need code written around it, it's pretty good there. One of the reasons I haven't deleted it is because I have their UI has like folders. You can put like different projects into folders, and it organizes things nicely. And it's got like a good memory of everything you've ever said to it. So there's still some projects I'm like partially complete on and wrapping up. I used like OpenAI almost exclusively when I was trying to sue LinkedIn, for example, as my paralegal, and having it like one place to keep everything in one place, like all my notes, all my cases. Pretty cool. So I still have OpenAI. The thing to note about OpenAI is that you need to move it to thinking mode. The way OpenAI works is like everything else, they want to find ways to degrade service to the average user. So they want to like give you good value by saying, yeah, if you pay $20 a month, you can get this access to all the best models. But they're going to default it to answering instantly because that uses less processing power for them. So you just change it to thinking mode. It'll take a little bit longer, but you'll get really good results, whereas you don't get really good results in their fast mode. And I keep threatening to cancel OpenAI, and it still keeps sticking around. The other thing OpenAI I find is best at, and one of the reasons I do keep it around, is it's really good at image generation. I'd played with Midjourney in the past, which is also really good if you have time to sit in there and like get super granular with your prompts. And you have to prompt it in kind of the right way to get Midjourney to do a really good image. It's more powerful if you are like a graphic person and want to get down and dirty with it. For the kind of images I need, though, I find OpenAI is generally best because it does a really good job at just taking whatever prompt you give it and converting that into image generation. And it seems to be a bit more powerful at certain things. It's gotten better at like image generation with text in it. Or if you have image generation where you need to like change just one element or like replace one element with another element, it can actually like do that. And because it just communicates with the OpenAI kind of natural language, it's really good for that. And then the last one I want to mention is Grok, because this one I'll end up keeping just because I'm get it through my the fact that I'm paying for X Premium. The fact that I'm paying for X Premium, though, I'm just doing it because like I like using X and occasionally post things I'd like to get out there, and you kind of have to do the X paid plan if you want to have any reach with your account. So that being said, like I always see Elon in particular bragging about Grok defeating all these other models at various things, and it might be true. Like it does seem like they're generally like whenever I'm trying to prompt, I will like split test doing Grok and OpenAI, because my thesis is that I can kind of get rid of the generalized prompts for OpenAI and just start doing it entirely in Grok, which I'm paying for anyway. And it seems like it's getting pretty good results. So like it seems like it might be comparable for like general inquiries like that. Again, Grok might have a like command line code tool. I haven't tried it. I would like to, because at the end I'm going to converge on the command line code tools. Similar with OpenAI, like I just don't know, like the code it spits out in the browser is pretty good. If you're doing any coding on mass, the copying from the browser and pasting is going to get old, and you're going to want the AI tools. Just that's how it is. So I don't know if I'm going to do that. The one thing that Grok does really, really well that none other like do as well as Grok is their video. They can like create from an image a short like 6-second or something video, which is pretty good. And I think that like people's attention spans being what they are, like everything's kind of converging on video. So I think that's like actually a really crucial feature. So I might end up like I might end up just continuing to pay for OpenAI and Grok because essentially my workflow, whenever I need to do something visual, is I'll use ChatGPT to generate an image, put it in Grok, have it turn it into a short video, and boom, there you go. So that's like the ones I've played with. This was in the context of Gemini 3 just got released. Gemini 3 is another one of those I keep seeing really, really good things about on X. But then when I was talking with my colleague the other day about this, he was saying, I also see it and I used it and it kind of sucks. So I don't know what to believe. So I hear really good reviews about it, as well as people I know that actually use these services. I've seen them say really good things about Gemini 3. I can't corroborate, so I don't know. But yeah, if you do hear, I'd be interested in hearing back. So that is my short handicap on all the state of the various AI coding things. But I do think that the AI coding is real. Like it is a real thing where you can get together like prototypes of apps and pretty good stuff very quickly. And I would urge all of you, like, it's a great time just to build random stuff. Because we might be in a bear market, but also just because I think if we build apps that don't require people to have thousands of dollars to access and start building trust with users, we are going to like see users come back to crypto. So like with that, one of the things I will plug is we've got one such thing that I'd like to share. I'd like to spend a little time at the end of these calls just to talk about all the cool stuff we're building at Leviathan News. And Leviathan News, more than anything else, because like when we launched it, there's a lot of us who like had other full-time gigs, but we were also like terminally addicted to X. And we're like, if we combine our powers to post about random stuff on X, like we could actually build some pretty cool stuff. And that's really borne out. It also means that like we've got like insane technical ambitions and we don't have anyone coding full time. So we actually hadn't been able to unlock a lot of stuff that we wanted to unlock until we had like these AI agents that we could just, say, go do this, come back 2 hours later, and it would build stuff. So the thing in particular I wanted to highlight is we have been soft testing the return of the Leviathan newsletter. And we had been doing a newsletter by Substack for a while. And my opinion is that good writing is not yet cracked by AI. So it's getting better, and I think we'll crack writing at some point. It is not yet good or interesting to read stuff that's written by AI. Like AI slop is a term for a reason. It's mostly the writing. So I actually think that AI is replacing readers faster than it is replacing writers. That is like, I think AI is more likely to remove readers from the equation because it's going to completely destroy people's attention spans or people's interest in reading before it actually like we see really good written content. So we tried to come up with a fully AI written newsletter and we couldn't do it. Like I read a lot. I'm a bit of a snob on some level about reading, and because I couldn't find a readable newsletter, I'd been sitting on like, how do we do a good newsletter? But we cracked it, and we've been testing this, and it is going to be pushed out and deployed much more. So there's like a sneak preview here. Head to digest.leviathannews.xyz and try it out. You always see little things going wrong, like here still little things like the header and the white text against a white background is not so good. Maybe AI can read that better than I can. But we've got, I think, a formula that works for a daily newsletter. And when the gets generated automatically around 5 a.m. and hits my inbox, like I'm actually eager to read it because I actually like the content. So I'll just walk through what we've got here. First off, Squid Pass winner. So more good inventory for Leviathan squids out there. And then we just go through the top 5 stories from the past 24 hours. So if you didn't have a chance to read Leviathan, if you didn't have a chance to like go through the website, if you're just on your phone and want to see what's going on, you get the top 5 stories, you get the top comment on each of the stories. So like you get the context, or funny joke or TLDRs. And then you get a quick market snapshot, Bitcoin, Ethereum, and the Open Stablecoin Index, which I like you including the Open Stablecoin Index in there because it's just very good for DeFi. I don't think there's a better way of tracking the kind of performance of the DeFi, like let's call it like good DeFi, like the honest DeFi that's not trying to rug, but like the interesting stablecoin protocols that are open. Like that's what I care about. So all of them are doing bad. Open doing better than Bitcoin and Ethereum. So, but when the top gainer is Frax USD, like that's kind of a sign that top losers, Syrup didn't do so well. Asymmetry Finance, Sonic. So, but here's the part that is good. And when I said like it's tough to get a good AI newsletter, this is it. We've built out a trading signals. We asked the AI to ingest all the Leviathan news headlines from the past 24 hours and come up with buy signals and sell signals from it. And from it, we're actually like putting it into a back test, into a portfolio. So we reset it as of yesterday. So this is kind of like the first chance to take a look at the Leviathan digest. We're still cleaning up the formatting on a lot of these things. So like that's ugly. We'll get there. Don't worry. The cool part is just seeing like it saw yesterday Bitcoin is a strong sell, Ethereum is a buy, Aave is a weak buy. What happened if you put it into a portfolio? Now, obviously, this just went in, but it's got its position here. So there's 2 strategies we're testing, which are the inverse of each other. There's the buy the news strategy and the sell the news strategy. And that's just so fun because once this news hits, like obviously, like if you're at the bottom of the news funnel, you're the last person to hear about it. The phrase goes, buy the rumor, sell the news. I think it's just way more fun to actually like sit there and see what happened if once the news hit, you did the opposite. So if really good news came out, do the opposite. So the sell the news strategy is on bad news for Bitcoin buying, and it's shorting ETH and Aave. We'll see how it does. We ran this for a few weeks. It had some hiccups. You can go back and read through all the history there. But we ran it for a few weeks, and it was up like 3%, the buy the news strategy against the market. So maybe we were like overthinking it. Maybe it is like the right thing just to buy the news. We'll see. We'll see. The other thing that's notable about this is that this entire app was 100% vibe coded. So when I'm talking about like using these different services to do it, I didn't write a single line of code for this one. I said, let me just see how it is building an app from head to tail and just doing it through vibe coding. And it's possible. And it worked. I probably would have been, some things would have been better if I did it. Some things would have been better. We're certainly better having AI do it. But we're going to open source this repository. So I'm using up my Claude credits this week to just tell Claude, like, this is going to be your like showcase to the world. Could you finalize this repository and get it live and get it public? So we'll be putting it public pretty soon. The reason I bring this up is that even if you're non-technical, you're probably going to want to subscribe to this GitHub repository when it goes live, because one of the things that it does is every day when it updates the news, it's going to update the README with the top news and the portfolio backtest. So this is the first live like test of it that went through just fine. It came up with this trading signals. It came up with the top headlines, and it is going to link you in the GitHub repository to the image broken, but whatever. The full write-ups are all here in these write-up folders. So you can actually, like, once this repository gets open source, you can go back and look through the entire history of everything. The archive's just sitting right here. It's going to be pretty fun to like have this as a resource in the GitHub repository. Plus, all the code is going to be public, so you can see what all Claude has been thinking here and how it's built out this massively like functional repository that actually works. You could use it for yourself for your own purposes. And one of the things I wanted to highlight with this that I thought was pretty fun was it just, I didn't even ask it to do this, but it came up with lessons learned. Uh, it says here, key insight: AI excels in boilerplate tests and standard patterns. Humans remain essential for security, architecture, and judgment calls. Together, genuinely transformative. And it kind of got me thinking that like AI is trying like a little bit too hard to tell me that AI and humans can work together at the same time that AI is also demonstrably putting people out of work. Like it hadn't always been the case, but lately it's been happening where people are getting put out of work. So I think it's kind of funny that like at the same time it's taking our jobs, it's also like pushing propaganda saying, "Oh no, 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 AI and humans together, that's the key." At any rate, like be on the lookout for this. We're going to be publishing this, but you can get the sneak preview now, not at the GitHub repository, but by going to digest.leviathannews.xyz. Sign up for the emails, and you'll be getting that in your inbox every morning. And before I bounce, I wanted to bring on our good friend Joe Waite of Pangea, who has promised, he's teased me with there's some cool news coming. So I'm curious, what is this, Joe? Joe, we can't hear you. Okay, Joe, while you try and get your microphone hooked up, I will try and patter for a bit to avoid any dead air. But we are not able to hear a thing that you are saying. Maybe you were like sitting in there for like an hour and you just went to get some food. Or maybe you're going to go sign up for digest.leviathannews.xyz. All right. Joe is gone. So I will go ahead and just pitch other random stuff for a couple minutes while we are waiting to see if Joe comes. I'm going to have to leave in about 25 minutes, so I can't go for too long. We will try once more with Mr. Waite. Sir Waite, are you available? Okay, Joe's typing in the private chat. Sorry, no. All right, no Joe. No Joe. It's not meant to be. It doesn't seem like this week, but just subscribe to Pangea. Uh, if Joe Waite is promising interesting stuff coming, you can follow him on X at Joe Waite Official. And I'll go ahead and pop that up on screen so you can see. And his Pangea, I don't know how you all pronounce that, is IN_PANGEA. I thought Pangea had an A in it, but I guess not. An extra A. Pangea has done really cool research reports on behalf of a bunch of different entities. They did this really interesting report on the yield basis effect with regard to curve. They basically found that like yield basis is a net positive for curve LPs. So it's a fantastic thing, and that was in the argument that they should raise the debt ceiling for yield basis to 300 million. So maybe it's connected with the latest yield basis request. I don't know. Joe's been teasing us. Maybe he's here to talk about it right now, or maybe you're just gonna have to like wait and see. Joe, what's going on? Joe is typing in the private chat. So he's definitely doing a good job of building suspense for us. So whatever Pangea is releasing at In Pangea and Joe 8 Official, it's going to be a banger. Subscribe. He can't get the microphone to work. So maybe that's the news. Maybe the news is he got a good Black Friday deal on a microphone and he'll be with us some other time. Or maybe we can schedule like a Llama Party early next week, Wednesday or earlier, to see what he's got to say. I'm just going to go ahead and call it. I've been talking for a bit. My voice is getting hoarse. Really appreciate all of you hanging out with me. Really more so appreciate someone like Joe 8 actually pops in, which he's trying again. Let's see. Joe, eighth time the charm. You know, it's what they say. Hate to see you leave, but Nah, not getting it, Joe. Not getting it. It's okay. It's okay. We'll schedule an impromptu redux for next week or later today or who knows when. But we'll get you some time to talk about whatever this big breaking news is. Oh, look at that. We can see you.
Can you hear us now?
Yes, we can see you.
Oh, okay. Oh, God, you can see me as well. That wasn't intended, but it's okay. All right. So thank you for giving me like a bit of extended airtime. Much appreciate that. I wanted to give you something hot off the press. In fact, it's not even on the press yet. I'm just about to hit publish on the thing. So we've been doing some analysis of Curve USD following the launch of Yield Basis. And I thought that this might be of interest to your audience, given the proposal to raise Yield Basis caps up to 1 billion.
Yeah, it's quite a commitment. So I'm glad you're bringing some alpha here.
So, I was proofreading, but in the interest of time, I'm just gonna hit publish on this, and then we can go through it if you would like.
Absolutely.
YOLO, as they say.
Yeah. I was just thinking that. F it, we do it live.
Yeah. Okay. So let me send you the article, and maybe you can get it up on the screen. We can have a little read.
Telegram, where should I be looking?
Yeah, I've sent it to you on Telegram.
Oh yeah, there. Yes, there it is. Okay, and it's live. In Pangea was the place to check this out.
Yeah, let me. I can put it in the chat, right? Somehow.
Yeah, I'll go ahead and drop that for you if you want to start talking us through it.
Thank you. Yeah. So the new post proposal from Mitch to raise the cap to 1 billion. It's pretty sparse in terms of data. It has some screenshots, and one of the screenshots is of the Curve USD peg, and it's actually the Curve USD USDC pool, just the UI view from Curve. And pretty much it says, Curve USD peg looks okay, looks pretty stable. But we wanted to put some more granular data behind that and really investigate, is there any impact on the Curve USD peg? Because there's been a lot of discussion, controversy on the timeline about this. And what we did was we took an equal period of time before and after the launch of Yield Basis, and we analyzed the aggregate peg stability across the 4 main Curve USD pools for that period of time. And what we found was that, yes, there is actually a measurable increase in the volatility and the peg deviation of Curve USD in the period after the launch of Yield Basis when compared with that equivalent period just before. I do want to stress that, our conclusion is not that Yield Basis is causing the Curve USD peg to be unstable. That's not our conclusion here. We're not showing a causal link. There's lots of different factors that are affecting the Curve USD peg. One of which is that the market has been a lot more volatile since the launch of Yield Basis. Right, so that is going to have an effect. And that's one factor that you would need to control for to say anything more conclusive. But there is definitely something worth looking into more here, because one of the previous proposals from Mitch is to basically scale Curve USD in preparation for raising the caps on Yield Basis. And it's a very good proposal, and it outlines that there is a mechanism within Yield Basis and this is what we've shown previously in our research, where it swaps on yield basis go via the Curve USD pools. And so when there is significant volatility in Bitcoin, this is inducing very large swaps through yield basis, and that volume has to route through these Curve USD pools. And if the pools are not deep enough, then that can have the effect of pushing the peg around, right? By either dumping or removing Curve USD from those pools. So there is definitely a mechanism by which yield basis induces these structural flows into Curve USD pools, and that can have an effect on the peg if liquidity is not sufficiently deep in those pools. So that was really our intuition, is we wanted to look into, okay, what has been the effect of those mitigations that were intended to scale Curve USD and prepare the way for higher pool caps, and yeah, what is the current state of the Curve USD peg?
This is very interesting. I'm trying to skim it in the other tab while also displaying it here. So one of the things that Mitch argued in his post, and I'll see if I can pull that up in yet another tab, is that essentially like there was like a very wide period of extreme Curve USD volatility, and like maybe like 6 months to a year ago, it kind of settled down and became very flat. So you're arguing that this volatility is relative to that kind of period before it where it was flat, or like relative to the
yeah. So let's put it in perspective, right? If you just scroll up, there is some stats that we've given.
Yeah, I'll get there in a second.
Yeah, this is good. So our period that we looked at is from the beginning of August. So Curve launched like 20th of September. We're now at 20th of November. So beginning the range at start of August gives you just about equal time before and after the launch of yield basis. And that time before was a fairly stable period.
Right. Okay. So just for anyone who's looking at this graphic here, like it's super volatile in kind of the looks like September 2024 period. Basically 2024 is much more volatility, and then 2025 is fairly stable. But it's arguing more instability relative to this kind of earlier time in 2025. I don't know if you can see my mouse on the screen. I don't think you can. Okay, so let's get back to your article then.
So if you scroll up a little bit here, you see these. So first of all, just to explain what you're seeing in these charts, right? We took the end of block pool price for 4 major Curve USD pools. That's USDC, USDT, Pi USD or PayPal USD, and Frax USD. And the reason we chose those 4 pools is that they are both 4 of the largest pools by TVL and volume, but also they correspond to the 4 pairs used for the peg keepers. And what we did was we took the end of block pool price at each block in this time range. So one of the reasons why we don't want to look at the swap price intra-block is that because of sort of MEV, like people getting sandwiched at crazy prices, if you just look at the swap price, you will see lots of outliers. But typically by the end of the block, all of that MEV activity is done with. And so the end of block price is like a reasonable price that a user could be expected to swap at. So what we did was we plotted the prices for the 4 pools. That's the first 4 plots that you're seeing there. And then we took all of those prices and aggregated them together to create a TVL weighted measure of the absolute deviation. So for example, if Curve USD is minus 0.1 or it's plus 0.1, both of those count as 0.1 absolute deviation, right? So the figure is always positive. And it's TVL weighted. So for example, Frax USD pool is the lowest by TVL for most of this period. And therefore, we wouldn't want volatility in that pool, to skew the other pools like the USDC pool, which is much, much deeper. And probably that's where your swap is going to route through. So that's why we have weighted the results by the TVL of the pool. And you get this aggregated peg stability index here. And you'll see there's a blue line, which is a 7-day moving average. That's just to kind of smooth out some of the noise that you see. And then we also gave an absolute mean for the period before and for the period after. And what our results showed was a 66% increase in the mean absolute deviation after the launch of yield basis when compared with that period before.
Interesting. Definitely would like to know more about if there's a way of backing out volatility and controlling for that effect.
Yeah, certainly. And, we do mention it here in the article that you would want to control for market conditions to have some kind of apples for apples comparison, right? But I just want to put this in perspective a little bit. If you scroll up to where there are some statistics underneath the first chart that we just looked at, here you see there are some statistics for each pool. So I really do want to stress this because I don't want to be alarmist about this. If you look at the mean price and the median price across all 4 pools, it is above 0.999, right? Meaning the absolute majority of the time, Curve USD has been dead on peg pretty much.
Right. So when you're talking about it being more volatile of a peg, it's still relative to an incredibly tight peg baseline.
Exactly. Now, the absolute deviation figures are quite high. So, for example, Curve USD, USDC, there's an absolute deviation of over 6 cents there. Now, that's very high, right? But we do explain later on why that is, and it's actually due to pretty much a single outlier. That is some multi-block MEV that occurred during October 10th. So I wouldn't put too much weight on that absolute deviation figure because at no point was there a sustained depeg of 6 cents. You're seeing here that it's exactly as you said. Curve USD has been pretty stable, very tight around its peg. It's just that relative to the period we looked at before, it has been slightly more volatile.
Yeah, October 10th, obviously, also sort of, I don't want to say black swan events because those happen every month, but the sort of event that no one thought we could see that kind of volatility in a single, such a short time span until we did. So
if you scroll down a little, though, one of the next paragraphs here. So here I have a chart looking at mint rates on the Curve USD market. So this is an interesting point that I want to make here is we've shown that generally the mean peg of Curve USD has been very tight despite any increased volatility. However, Curve has 2 levers for controlling the peg of Curve USD. One is the peg keepers, and the second is the borrowing rates. So when Curve USD deviates from its peg, the first thing that happens is that the peg keepers kick into action, and they start either minting or burning Curve USD to try and bring it back to peg. If they have depleted all of their Curve USD debt, there's no more to burn, or they've minted up to their cap, the next line of defense is to either raise or lower the borrowing rate to try and influence the minting or redeeming of Curve USD in these markets. And so whilst you might not see this volatility show up in the actual price of Curve USD, you will first notice it in increased activity in the peg keepers and increased volatility in the borrowing rates. And we did not analyze the borrowing rates in this post. It's something that I would like to look into more, because I think that is where you will notice the effect of this before you ever begin to see it significantly affecting the actual price of Curve USD. And we have noticed, I mean, this is anecdotal, I don't have the data here to show it, but that borrowing rates have been fairly volatile recently. And if you just look at what's in the screenshot, which is the borrowing rates today, they are pretty high compared to, for example, Aave. And that is despite the utilization in these markets being very low. So the reason for the rates being high here is not because lots of people are borrowing and utilization is peaking. It is probably more to do with keeping peg.
Interesting.
So one thing that we're quite interested to look at is, has yield basis actually had an impact on Curve's borrowing business? Because if it's affecting the borrowing rates, that could have an adverse effect on borrowers and on the borrowing side of the business.
Interesting, yeah. And since that's one of the ways to keep the peg in check, like you mentioned, that's interesting. I guess, like, for me, like, I mentioned earlier, like, I am biased towards wanting Curve USD to hit that $1 billion mark. And if, like, and I'm probably, like, smooth braining this a little bit too much, but if we're currently at 300 million Curve USD and the kind of increased volatility was still this kind of flat line, like, I'd be willing to take a 3x, like, deviation away from 0.999 cents to like maybe 0.997 cents if we got to Curve USD to $1 billion. But maybe it's, I'm thinking of it the wrong way. Maybe it's like if it gets a little bit too loose, it might snap.
I think the point that I'm making here is that you probably wouldn't see it in the deviation of the Curve USD price. You would see the impact in the increased borrowing rates or more volatile borrowing rates, because we've also seen that, right? That one day, borrowing on Curve is almost free. Right now, it's 13%. And that creates less predictability for borrowers, and it also impacts people who are using high leverage. So that's what I would be looking at, really, is do we see ripples of this elsewhere in the system, even if we don't see it in a significant deviation in the actual Curve USD price.
Right.
This is quite interesting here, the chart that you have shown on the screen right now. On the left-hand side, we are showing the balance of coins in the pool, which of course is what determines the price. And in some of the pools there, with the exception of USDT, really, you can see that the quantity of Curve USD has recently been creeping up a bit in the pools. But on the right-hand side, we show the TVL of the pools. Now, this is very important because in Mitch's proposal for scaling Curve USD to enable larger caps on yield basis, he makes two proposals. The first one is to raise the peg keeper cap. That shows that the peg keepers have more room to deal with these fluctuations and keep the peg even at larger volumes flowing through those pools. That's the first proposal. Sounds very sensible. The second proposal is to direct incentives to these major CurveUSD pools to deepen the liquidity, so that they can better handle the volume of trading that comes with increased pool caps on yield basis. And so what you can see here on the graphs, it's very evident, right, where the incentives begin flowing into these pools and the TVL skyrockets, especially in the case of PayPal USD and Frax USD. You can see it's really had a considerable raise. PayPal USD went from 2 million TVL to 30 million in a very short space of time. And that's because it was attracting some of the highest level of incentivization. But what we see is that TVL did not stick around. That PayPal USD pool is back down to just over 2 million now. So this is very mercenary LP capital, right? It comes in for the incentives, but it's not sticky. It doesn't hang around. And that creates a volatility in the liquidity for CurveUSD that can have an adverse effect on the peg, because of course, if you scale up the yield basis pools and that scales up the volume and the flow through these pools, if that flow remains relatively constant, but the liquidity in the pool does not, then you would expect volatility in the price because the balance of the coins is going to be more pushed around by those flows. And that's actually what it outlines in that post, is that the real goal is that these pools need to achieve a sticky liquidity, also without consuming too much incentives, because then it just becomes very expensive for the protocol to maintain the level of liquidity needed to support its operation.
Wow, super interesting stuff. Yeah, thank you so much for coming here and breaking this news here. It'll give people some interesting stuff to read over the weekend. Anything else?
Yes, I hope people take the time to digest it over the weekend. Things are moving quite quickly with this proposal and with the scaling. And in our conclusion, we suggest at the end that there is a lot more analysis that needs to be done to really understand the mechanisms at play here, because this does not show any conclusive causal link, and we also don't go into much detail about the effect on borrowing rates or the activity of peg keepers. And these are areas that we're very interested to look into more, because we believe that there might be some interesting data we can learn from here. So what we're really suggesting at the end is that maybe we should just pause a little and allow some time to do some further study before raising the caps to 1 billion, so that we can better understand the impact that yield base is having and how it interacts with Curve's lending business. And really, we would like to be able to suggest some effective mitigations that are going to help yield basis and Curve to scale CurveUSD safely and responsibly.
All right. Well, thank you again so much for coming and sharing this with us. I've gone ahead and posted this to the Leviathan news feed, so anyone who's interested in reading the full report and isn't happening to be here in the comments can find that there, leviathannews.xyz, our Telegram channel. I mentioned a few times while you were getting on your handles, Joe Wait Official and In Pangea. Is that the best place for people to find you on X?
Absolutely, yeah. Joe Wait Official and in_Pangea. Go and follow. You can read this latest article there. Please do share it around, and please do share your comments. We'll also be sharing this on the Curve Governance Forum. I think it's an important contribution to that discussion. And yeah, thank you so much, CurveCap, for having me on such short notice and for tolerating all of my technical difficulties. But yeah, thanks for letting us break this news on the number one news platform for all of your crypto goodness, right? Leviathan News.
Yeah,
Please
well,
subscribe and like and share.
thank you for doing my job for me. I don't have to go ahead and pitch it. So definitely thank you for coming here and choosing us. Don't be sad because we're leaving, because there's still plenty of good stuff you can watch over the weekend. In addition to reading through this report, I'd recommend checking out this interview that Rex did with Fiddy, who used to work at Curve and is still super active at building a lot of the cool stuff that we see at Curve. I haven't got a chance to listen to the interview just yet. So I don't know, like maybe it's a bad interview, but I couldn't imagine it being a bad interview. So I definitely recommend people spend the weekend to check that out. All right, friends, there's another one in the books. It is November 21st.